Good evening, cadets. This is Lance here from Cinematic Galaxy, and I'm finally here to bring you guys my review of Game of Thrones, based on the show, based on seasons 1 through 7, which are our currently released seasons of the show. Now, I'm late to the party. I was not watching Game of Thrones when it came out. I pretty much binged the show over the course of my winter break. I'm back in school now. I just started back, but I figured that was my best time I'd get to do it. And it was probably one of the smartest decisions I've ever made in my life because I flew through this show after season one, especially, and after Star Wars fever kind of settled down with The Last Jedi. But but yeah, I mean, for years and years and years, I've been hearing about how amazing this show is, and I'm one of those people. I don't want to say I'm a hipster, but when everybody is hyping up a show, I kind of avoid it because I'm just like, everybody's talking about this. I don't know if it's really going to live up to that for me. But after a while, some more friends convinced me to watch it, and we kind of struck a bargain. I got a few people to start watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I said I'd start Game of Thrones, and I did. And I actually garnered an interest in it by that point. Fortunately, I didn't have a really strong memory of spoilers or things I may have seen on Facebook because yeah, people post spoilers almost instantly. So I didn't really remember much, and there were a few things I had spoiled for me along the way as I was watching it, but they weren't that big. They were things I kind of saw coming, um, more or less. But anyway, yeah. So this is not going to be a spoiler review because yeah, I know a lot of people were invested by this point. They know what happens. The spoilers are everywhere. But there are people like me who just hadn't started the show. At some point, everybody is going to watch the show. At some point, people who are into this sort of stuff, who are into, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever. This isn't sci-fi, but it still is one of those, fandom things. Um, Even if you're saying you're not going to watch it, you are going to watch it at some point. Believe me, you are. So you don't want to know spoilers. And this is a show, again, with respect to people who've read the books, um, and they know certain things. The show, for one, is ahead of the books now, and also, you just don't want to know. You want to be as surprised as possible because there are a lot of surprises in this show. A lot of things you wouldn't expect. Um, Also, um, if I were to really go into spoilers, this review would be way too long. So what I'll probably do is leading up to season 8 at some point down the line, I'll review each season. Because I'm going to rewatch the show leading up to that. I'm going to have to refresh myself, and because it's going to be a very different experience. So at some point that's going to happen. But anyway, getting into Game of Thrones, what did I think about it? I absolutely loved the show. Um, and I was pretty interested in the plot from the very beginning because basically we're introduced to this family of the Starks. Sean Bean, Ned Stark, he's one of the main characters starting out, and we see his family, his wife Catelyn Stark, and his kids, Robb Stark, Jon Snow, who is a bastard, um, and we also get, the younger ones, Bran Stark, Sansa Stark, and Arya Stark, and yeah, I mean, we're introduced to this family, and we see when this royal family, the Baratheon, King Robert Baratheon, they come to Winterfell. I think either they come to Winterfell or the Starks go to King's Landing. Don't eat me up, diehard Game of Thrones fans. I'm still mulling over all the details of the show, but I know it's something like that, and that's really where the story takes off. There's so many different characters, there's so many different scenarios, so many different things that unfold throughout the course of this show. And it's way too many to cover in a simple review. But I will say that by the end of season 1, I was left surprised, stunned. Um, the show really plays with your emotions a lot. And that did not stop. That feeling continued throughout each season. Season 3. The ending to season 3, my word. My word. Um, let's just say you've probably heard of the Red Wedding. Um, I had heard of Red Wedding, and I had actually watched the scene on YouTube some years ago. Thankfully, going into this show, I did not remember the scene specifically, and I didn't exactly remember the context of it in terms of the characters and all that. That's all I'm going to say on this. But yeah, you've heard of Red Wedding, chances are. So that sucker punched me. And there were other things that came afterwards. There was a ton of payoff in later seasons for things that happened early on, and you see the actors, you see how they grow into their characters, and their performances grow, their characters develop. People die. No one's really safe on this show. That's the one of the big things about Game of Thrones that you probably know, even if you haven't watched it, is that a lot of people die. No one's safe. Um, and I mean that's one of the things that makes it so addicting, I'll say. Um, yeah. So again, I love the show. I absolutely love the show. Um, it's HBO, and on HBO, I mean they they don't sugarcoat the violence. They are able to show some really violent scenes. There's a lot of sex early on. They kind of tone down with the sex later, but early on there's some sex scenes that they're pretty graphic, and there's nudity and all that stuff, and so it's not really something you watch with your families. Um, there are, if I'm getting a little more critical here, there are moments where I definitely think they were just going for shock factor with some of the nudity and whatnot, some of the sex, and even some of the violence. I think that at points some of it could have been a little toned down, a little bit lessened, but not to an extreme degree. Like, I still get what they're going for. They're going for realism, and for the most part, the show does succeed in that. Yes, there's fantasy aspects because there's dragons eventually and all that stuff, but but the show is still going for a grounded, realistic feel in medieval kind of times in this world of Westeros, which is not Earth to my knowledge. It's sort of like a Middle Earth type deal, except it's not Middle Earth either. Before Tolkien purists and Game of Thrones fans eat me alive, um, but yeah, it's such a vast world that's built, such an interesting world, and so many different aspects of it. I'm not even covering half of it. Um, but yeah, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of violence, a lot of sex and stuff like that. But that's very surface value of what Game of Thrones is. When you get down to the bottom of it, it's about the characters. And the characters are the big thing that draw me to this show and keep me watching. And that's what I found myself so invested in. Um, now, now going back to that, my favorite, if I had to pick a favorite season, it's really hard because each season has something I love. Each season has its own kind of payoff. I'm not so sure I can pick a favorite season, but if I had to, man, honestly, I might have to say season 7. Um, Seasons 4 and 7 are pretty high up there for me. Season 3, it's too hard to really pick a favorite season. As far as my favorite character on the show, it's Arya Stark. Arya Stark, Tyrion Lannister. It's kind of between those two. Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen are up there as well. There's a lot of other great characters, a lot of great side characters. Um, so many interesting ones on the show, but Arya Stark and Tyrion Lannister are my favorite characters. Um, yeah, I mean the musical score is great. The I haven't really talked a whole lot about the technical aspects because I'm still just so enraptured by the show, and I've gotten so into it that I don't know if I showed this earlier or not, but I got the box set of the books. They're really long, but I plan on reading them. I've started a Game of Thrones, which is the first of the Song and Ice and Fire series. And yeah, they're long reads, but it's interesting. But from a technical aspect, television show, this has the best production value of a television show that I can remember in terms of the visual effects, the cinematography, the music, all of it. It's really incredible stuff. And yeah, I mean, if I have to sum it up, Game of Thrones is really as good as people say it is. Uh, and I would give it I'd give it a solid 9.7 out of 10. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know down below what your thoughts of Game of Thrones are. How excited are you for the final season? It's going to be a long wait, but hey, do what you can in between then. Rewatch the series, read the books, whatever. Thanks as always for watching. This is Lance from Cinematic Galaxy, signing off.